Shout out to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm going to be practicing animation. So I was thinking and I had the realization that when it comes to drawing, I let myself create derpy little doodles. But for some reason when it comes to animation, I always take it a bit more seriously, or I don't let myself create simple little animations just to practice animating. So today I'm going to change that. I'm going to create some simple animations for practice. To help me decide what to animate, I went to Google to find an animation prompt generator, and I found this one someone had made, and it had their own characters in it, and I was able to edit it to have my characters as well as some other animation ideas. Once I was done customizing, I clicked randomize, and we got Doris eating. This is a simple concept, but like I said, these are supposed to be simple little animations to encourage me to practice. We aren't going for anything amazing or mind-blowing. So yeah, let's animate Doris eating. First I had to decide what I wanted Doris to be eating. I wanted to avoid anything that required utensils because I hate drawing characters holding utensils. After some thinking, I decided on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It seemed like something Doris would eat and seemed really easy to work with, so I went with it. Right now, I'm very roughly drawing out my concept. My plan is to have Doris look at the sandwich, she takes a bite of the sandwich, and then she chews the bite that she took and looks very pleased with the sandwich. Now I kind of want a sandwich. Now that I have the rough idea, I'm going to draw things out in more detail. For this, I make a new animation folder. If you've never animated in Clip Studio Paint, I'll explain the process a little bit. Basically, you have your timeline, and to place layers on the timeline as frames, I make an animation folder. I can make layers in the folder and assign them to the timeline. If you make layers not in animation folders, they will always be displayed like this layer I have for the line of the table. I didn't want that to change at all, so I didn't put it in an animation folder. So yeah, basically I just draw a frame on each layer and assign that layer to the timeline. Right now I'm drawing Doris more fleshed out, and for a lot of the frames I'm just copying Doris and changing what I need to change. I'm doing this because I'm trying to keep things on model. I don't want Doris's face changing a lot or the sandwich changing in size. Thankfully, because I don't plan to use this as the final animation, I can keep things rougher and don't have to worry about cleaning everything up when I move things around. I find it amusing how in the footage we can see Doris and the sandwich slowly coming closer together. Also, at first I was going to have Doris bite the sandwich with her eyes open, but I thought it would give the bite more personality if I close her eyes instead. Her face does look a bit funny as she's closing her eyes and opening her mouth. So yeah, so far we have Doris biting into the sandwich, and now I need to have Doris move back up and chew the bite she took. Having her move back up wasn't too hard. I just kind of reversed what I did before, but I wasn't totally sure how I wanted to draw her mouth chewing. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a lot of frames for it or keep it simple and only use a couple. I am animating at 15 frames per second, so this does kind of limit how many frames I can use for things. If I start to use too many, the animation will feel slow, so I decided to only use 2 frames for the chewing motion. Lots of animation is done at 24 frames per second. I have animated at that amount a couple times, but I do often find it to be a little intimidating or harder to work with, so I will more often work at 12 or 15 frames to make things a bit simpler. So here is my rough pass. I was feeling pleased with how it turned out, so I can start working on cleanup. Also, I forgot to mention that I kind of tried to set a time limit for these animations. The reason I did this is to help me not take things too seriously and to encourage me to go faster and not get so caught up in details. Like I mentioned in a recent video, I found setting time limits for myself kind of helps me. I can be a bit of a perfectionist and get really focused on small details that maybe don't really matter. So by setting a time limit, I help combat that. That being said, I did go over my time limit. The limit I gave myself was 1.5 hours. I think I ended up going for a little more than 2 hours for this animation. I was okay with this though, because I don't animate as much, I have a harder time gauging how long things will take me to do. So the time limit is kind of more like a goal instead of a harsh deadline. I still want to finish the animations to a certain extent. For the rough pass I was working on earlier for the animation, I moved the different parts around a lot to help keep them consistent. However, for this cleaned up version, I tried to keep redrawing each frame myself. I did this to maybe help things feel more fluid and less stiff. The subtle changes between the frames can help things have more movement, and because I try to keep things very consistent earlier in the process, when I'm drawing over the frames, I'm not too worried about the drawings changing too much. Also, you may notice throughout the footage, a lighter version of my previous drawing will appear. This is what's known as an onion skin. It lets you see what you've drawn before or after a frame, sometimes both. This also helps me keep things more consistent. I did kind of end up drawing Doris in my chibi elf style. For some reason when I animate, I tend to default to this style instead of my normal style. I think it's because it's simpler, like the eyes are simpler and the proportions are more stylized. I do feel like I should try to animate in my normal style more, but for just practice, this is also fine. Animation can be pretty repetitive, so I'm having a little bit of trouble finding things to talk about. I'm often just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over, and this can feel very tedious and not super fun at times. But then when you take a moment to look at some of the frames you've drawn and you see the character moving, there's something about that feeling and seeing the frames come together that feels so good. And that little feeling of happiness when you see it come together is what keeps you going. Also, the repetitiveness isn't too bad. It can be kind of relaxing at times, or you can kind of zone out and just go. Especially when you go to this part where you're just cleaning up the frames you planned out. But at the same time, you start to feel like you're going crazy because you're just drawing basically the same thing over and over. I experience a lot of conflicting emotions when I'm animating. So to help things feel a little more finished and fancy, I filled in Doris's hair with color and also added a little bit of shading. I do all of this on a new animation folder that is under my sketchy line art layer. I also added some little blushies to Doris's cheeks, so when she's eating, she looks even more happy. Before I show you the finished product, I do want to do a frame by frame breakdown. So first we have the starting position of Doris looking at the sandwich. Doris's eyes light up and she moves up a bit, and her shoulders raise. Then she starts to move down towards the sandwich and her eyes start to close. She takes a bite, and I have another frame where she moves just a bit more down before moving back up into the chewing animation. The blush fades in and we have two frame switching to create the chewing. Her mouth moves and also the line of her chin moves to make it look like her mouth is moving. So yeah, here it is all together. I feel like it turned out cute and I had fun making it. I feel like it was a good warm-up animation to help me get back into the animation workflow. My sister Reagan said it seems like a loading screen for some kind of cooking game, and I totally agree. This next animation I'll be working on is going to be a bit more tricky, but before we jump into that, I want to thank Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Tokyo Treat and Sakurako want to share Japanese culture and invite everyone to experience Japan from the comfort of their own homes through their snack boxes. Tokyo Treat and Sakurako are both monthly Japanese snack subscription boxes, but both offer different experiences. First, we have Tokyo Treat with the theme of Okinawa Seaside Snackin'. You'll get up to 20 of the latest, most exclusive, limited edition, and seasonal flavored Japanese snacks that are only available in Japan for a limited time. Summer is the perfect time to go to the beach, and this month, Tokyo Treat wants to invite you to explore Japan's sun-kissed paradise that is Okinawa through the snacks like Okinawa Potato Chinsuko, Chili Hiyashi Ramen, Kame-sen Senbai, and special Kit Kat cookies and cream. You can learn more about all the snacks you receive, as well as allergen information in this really handy booklet. The booklet also contains a wealth of information about Japanese culture. Two of my personal favorite snacks from this box are the Piccola Lemon and Koi Kea salted caramel chips. These Piccola Lemon are such a lovely treat. They are very crispy and offer a lovely lemon flavor. Crunch into this unique fusion of sweet, salty, and savory flavors. Made with rock salt and Japan-grown potatoes, these chips make for a super tasty snack. Next, we have Sakurako. If you're looking for an authentic Japanese snack subscription box, this one is for you. Each box comes with 20 traditional and authentic artisan Japanese snacks, including Japanese teas and one special Japanese tableware. Sakurako is partnering with local Japanese snack makers to continue to share Japanese culture and traditions that have been passed down for over 100 years. This box's theme is Heritage of Nikko. Sakurako partnered with the Nikko local government and makers to offer traditional treats and teas reflecting Nikko's rich heritage. Enjoy Hino Hikari Senbai, Nikko Rusk, and 80th Night Shincha Tea. Introducing this month's special item, the Patchwork Furushiki. Furushiki is a traditional Japanese wrapping cloth. It doubles as a stylish handkerchief, fashionable bandana, or versatile bento box wrap. Experience its versatility firsthand. Two of my favorite snacks from this are the Waka Ayu Marshmallow and Sesame Anko Donuts. In Japan, the ayu, or sweet fish, holds a special place as a symbol of summertime. The marshmallow is super yummy and soft. These fluffy donuts feature sesame-filled sweet bean paste. They are so delicious. You can use my code DRAWMANGA to get $5 off your first box. These boxes make a perfect gift for a loved one or as a special treat for yourself. Thank you so much again to Tokyo Tree and Sakura for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into animating. So we are back to the generator to see what will make me animate, and we got Raelyn run cycle. You know, oddly enough, I've never animated a walk or run cycle before. It seems like one of those basic things I would have done, but it's always sounded confusing, so I've avoided it. And well, it looks like today's the day I'm going to give it a try. Because I've never done a run or walk cycle before, I did look for some references to use, and I found this one that breaks down each frame of the run cycle. This was super helpful and helped ease a lot of my confusion. I'm starting out by roughly drawing each frame. This has helped me just get the general pose in place. I'm not worrying about Raelyn's characteristics yet or any of the details. The first frame is a stride with the right leg going forwards and the right arm going back. An important thing to remember for run and walk cycles is that the arms and legs go opposite of each other. Another important thing to remember is to turn the upper torso. This is something I didn't notice at first, but the upper torso turns a decent amount, especially if the character is running really fast or putting a lot into the running. When the right arm goes back, we see the front of the torso more, and when the left arm goes back, we see the back of the torso more. One thing I was a bit confused about during this process is where to place the character for each frame. I didn't know if I needed to shift it to the right or left or how I should make it line up. You won't see it until later, but after I looked up some footage of people running, I figured out that I shouldn't shift the character at all to the left or right. I should only have them bob up and down. Also, for the later frames, I figured out that they are basically the same poses again. It's just what arms and legs are in front are swapped. So instead of the left leg going forward, the right leg is, and so on. So here are my initial frames. They are rough and a bit janky, but a lot of that will be fixed with the next passive animation. Now that I have the basic idea in place, I'm going to draw a more detailed version with some of Raelyn's features. I'm going to animate the hair as a secondary movement, so I'm not going to draw it for now. Also, in case you don't know, Raelyn is an OC of mine that has sheep characteristics. She has non-human ears and horns that I will add with the hair later. I did just notice I didn't add a tail. I never know if I want to add a tail to Raelyn or not. Also, this is where I figured out the whole character placement thing. So I moved all my frames to make it so the head lines up and will just move up and down instead of left and right. And now that I know this, it seems pretty obvious that the head and body wouldn't move around a whole bunch. But like when you're trying to figure it out on your own without looking at people running, it seems really confusing. So look up references, it's really helpful. I looked up some footage of people on treadmills since they are then running in place, kind of like my animation. So yeah, I kind of just drew over my rough sketch and make a more cleaned up version that has more accurate proportions. Like with the hair, I plan to add the clothes later as a secondary animation. For now, I just wanted to focus on the body and its movement. Like how I did with my Doris animation, I'm going to take the first frame I drew and copy it. I will then take this copy and edit it to fit the next frame. Once again, I'm doing things in this way to keep things consistent. I don't want the proportions changing a ton from frame to frame, like the arms randomly getting way longer or shorter. This part was kind of interesting because it felt like I was moving around the different pieces, kind of like a puppet. Also, something that was super helpful for this is changing the center point of my transformation box. If I had a point I wanted a piece to be rotating from, I would move the center point to that area. That way the part rotates from that point. This really helped when working on the joints. Also, I wanted to say thank you to all of you who left such encouraging and sweet comments on last week's video. They all made me smile so much and I appreciate your support. As I'm recording this audio, it is nearly the 4th of July. And a good amount of my family, my fiance and I, are going to go watch fireworks. I love watching fireworks, they're so pretty and sparkly. My favorite fireworks are the ones that are a goldish color and they kind of rain down what looks like a bunch of sparkles. I love those ones. They also make the really neat noise. Oh, and speaking of sparkly things, it was a bit funny. So my mom and I went out shopping mostly to get clothes for my siblings for the wedding. But as we were out and about, I came across some bedside table lamps. I was keeping my eye out for some. I'm trying to get the apartment feeling homey before I move into it after I get married. And so I found these ones that were really pretty and sparkly. Kind of like this, except the lampshade has super tiny sparkles that you kind of only see when you turn it in the light. They were also a really good price, so I decided to buy them. And when I showed my fiance, he was a bit skeptical. He said, "I'm questioning the sparkles." And I just replied with, "It's me." He knows I like shiny things. And then he said, "This is what happens when I let you go shopping." Thankfully, once we got them set up, he did like them. He was worried they'd be a bit too big, but they fit very well. So my mission of finding lamps was a success. And we also found some clothes for my siblings. We're having to buy them all clothes and new shoes because a lot of my siblings don't have nicer shoes because they all grow so much. But yeah, we found stuff, so yay. Anyways, back to the animation. So I had drawn all the frames of the running and was now ready to move on to cleanup and adding the clothes and hair. The sad part is that during this process, my house lost power for like a split second. So my computer shut down and I lost the footage as well as some of the work I did. And can I just say, I was so sad and also mad when my computer shut down because I was literally like 2 frames away from finishing the animation. I was so bummed. Thankfully, when I powered up my computer again and got into Clip Studio Paint, it did save a backup that had a good amount of my work saved. I just had to redo a few frames towards the end. However, my footage was corrupted, which is why we are using the Clip Studio Paint footage instead, because I lost the other footage. Also, I'm going to say I had no idea what I was doing when I was animating the hair. I really winged it and just tried my best to get it to look decent and loop in a way that seemed okay. I could maybe try to explain the process for it, but I don't even really think what I did was correct, so it'd probably be better for me to not explain it. So yeah. And once again, for the later frames to make things easier, I just copied my previous frames but switched the arms and legs around. Also, keeping track of which leg is in front can be very confusing. I had a few different times during the process where I got the legs confused. Thankfully, I was always able to catch it and fix it before I got too far into the process. Also, to make it easier to see Raelyn, I decided to add some gray tones to the background and to the back limbs. So like we did before, let's do a frame-by-frame breakdown of the animation. First, we have the stride with the right leg going forward. Then we have the leg meeting the ground, and Raelyn moves down a decent amount. We get these middle transition frames, and the upper torso is moving to more of a side view, and the right leg is moving back. We then have this frame where both legs are off the ground. The right arm is now forward, so the upper torso is turned so we can see the back. And we are once again at the full stride, and the frames repeat except the limbs are switched as to which one is moving forward and back. And so here are all the frames together. I do know there's more I could have done or experimented with to make it feel more interesting or fancy, or maybe more dynamic. But being that this is my first run cycle, I wanted to stick with the basics and just focus on the motion before worrying about stylizing it more. You gotta know the basics before you're able to make things fancy. But I am happy with how both animations turned out, and I did enjoy getting to work on them. I think using the generator to help me decide what to animate was fun and helped me come up with new ideas, or it encouraged me to try new things. Like I said, it always feels so neat seeing all the frames come together to create movement. Well, that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!